How's it going, everybody? RazingHel here. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the new Forge event. So this is like version 2.0 of the Forge. I know in the past it's kind of been suggested it might be called something like Reforge, but at the moment it looks like Klei is just going with the Forge once again. So I'm going to be calling this Forge version 2.0 or Forge 2018, so that way we can be clear on whether or not it's from this year, 2018, or the Forge from last year. Now, they're very similar from what we're seeing here in the beta. At least the early stages of the Forge 2018 are going to be very similar to the way it worked back in 2017. So the beta itself, as I mentioned here, is currently available. It's going to run until the 8th of November when the full launch should roll out for the Forge. Keep in mind that if you are involved in the beta, any progress you make while in the beta will not be carried over once the event launches in full. I suppose it should go without saying that the gameplay you see in the background is from me and a team last night playing the Forge event on stream. It was fairly interesting because I immediately jumped into a match with some random players and we managed to win it the very first try. But for those who aren't aware of what the Forge is, maybe you weren't around in 2017 when this event first came out. So I'm just going to briefly read from the announcement here that Klei made, so that way we're all kind of on the same page. So the Forge is a limited time 6-player co-op challenge where the goal is to try and defeat Battle Master Pugna's champions in an arena. The only way to survive will be to work together. The Forge is played on official Klei servers that are available only during the event. There are going to be no community hosted servers during this event. What's going to be included as part of the Forge event? It's been rebalanced from last year's Forge. It has new character skins, items, skins, and more. You will be able to create your own on-demand dedicated event servers, but the difference is that these servers will not run on your computer or on a virtual private server or whatnot that you have set up. It will actually be hosted by Klei, but you will be able to set up your own custom ones on Klei's servers. There is an event drop system where when you earn levels, you also get the war chests, which are similar to like classic curio chests, except they contain exclusively Forge items. And I just realized here now, while I'm recording this, that Klei appears to be calling this Redux version of the Forge Season 2. So ignore what I said earlier about version 2 or 2018. This is going to be the Forge Season 2 going forward. Just keep that in mind. I'm sorry for the confusion. So after this, I'm going to talk a little bit more about my experience with the Forge beta thus far. From what I've seen, there is very little new content that's been added at the moment. Now, there is a page that you can visit, and I will include a link to it in the description below, that shows the progress that the community has towards unlocking new content for the Forge. So keep in mind, when the Forge Season 2 sort of launched here, a lot of content was still locked, especially new content. There was a lot of old content that we had seen previously in Forge Season 1. But here for Forge Season 2, a lot of the new stuff has been locked behind sort of this progression wall, or this progression bar. And it's a community-wide progression, which basically means that everybody throughout the entire world, essentially, who defeats Barillas at the very first stage will contribute to increasing this bar and gradually unlocking additional items, mobs, and bosses as the event progresses. So this is significantly different from the way it worked back in 2017, and it brings into question, in my opinion anyway, whether or not this is like the best way to introduce new players to it. Maybe it is. The thing that I'm kind of worried about here is that it looks like a lot of the stuff is really late game. Now, for the best players in the world, they generally tend to win the Forge event within about 10 minutes. 10 to 12 minutes seems to be around about in that time range. My worry is that by adding all this additional content, it's going to extend the duration of an average match to quote-unquote win the Forge for an unreasonable amount of time. Let's say they doubled the amount of content that they added to the community unlocks, which means that as more and more players beat various bosses as this event progresses, the match times will get longer and longer. I think one alternative to this system could have been simply having an alternative path, sort of a choose your own adventure style unlock, where Season 2 would kind of unlock an entirely separate path that you could go down but you could at the same time still access the content from Season 1, providing you would choose that path while playing. I think that would have been a little bit more interesting, especially for those of us who've kind of played the Forge event Season 1 before, and we're really familiar with how everything goes down right up to the Grand Forge Warrior. So at that point, we need to like work through all of this existing content, which can take, 15 minutes time and time again before we actually get to see any of the new stuff that's been added. And to me, it kind of has the same dilemma, the same problem that we saw with A New Reign for Don't Starve Together as the game as a whole, where a lot of this content that was being added was more late game stuff that early game players would not see, right? You're not going to be going down there and fighting the Fuel Weaver without a lot of preparation, and a lot of players don't ever get to see the content because that it requires so much preparation. So what you're essentially doing is investing a lot of time in developing these end game type events, bosses and whatnot for a very select few players who actually make it all the way there. Now that's a good thing in some ways, but I think that it would have been nice as well to like include more content for the early part of this event. And that's like one thing that I'm a little bit mixed on. I need to be sold on the idea that the community unlocks will progress in a way that actually makes sense, or it doesn't just make the game, the event more tedious, doesn't just drag it on longer. Because I think that's kind of a bad direction to go. Having these events occur in like little chunks, right? You don't have to commit to this event the way you would have to commit to a standard game of Don't Starve. It's a bite-sized chunk, right? It's like playing a game of League of Legends. It exists in its own, in its entirety. And I'm just a little bit worried they're going to be stretching it on a little bit too long with Season 2 here. And then what are we looking at for Season 3 then? Do you just continue extending it from there? There's obviously going to be a practical limit at which point you have to decide maybe it's time to branch off with alternative paths that the warriors can take based on the decisions that they make. Maybe you can befriend certain enemies in the actual Forge arena, and that'll open up different paths. I thought that would be a cool idea, but we'll see where this takes us. At the moment, nothing really new has been unlocked. The one thing that has been unlocked that wasn't unlocked before is the Barilla, or the Barillas, however you want to see it. They have a new attack that they can use. It's the rolling attack. I'm not exactly sure if there is a technical term for it, but basically the Barillas can roll at you as an attack in addition to being able to swipe at you and do a sort of a jumping attack. So up until this point, that's sort of been the extent of all the new content that I've seen anyway personally in the beta, and it looks like we won't see any more until that community unlock bar continues to inch up as more and more players, right now anyway, defeat the Barillas and contribute to that progress bar. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind if you're not quite sure how to become a part of the Forge beta. Go to your Steam library, right click on the game name, choose properties, and then in the betas tab, click the little drop down menu and choose the Forge beta. A couple of other things to keep in mind here is that in the past, players who have been part of a beta have gotten a reward of some sort. So even if you're not necessarily interested in trying out the beta right now, because it can be a little bit buggy, I would still recommend that you participate in it in case there is a potential reward. I'm not going to say with certainty there will be one, but there's a precedent for Klei giving away rewards to players who participate in betas. So it's a good idea to hedge your bets here and just go ahead and become a part of the beta. Another thing that happened is like I said, the beta can have bugs. When I was playing with my team, a couple of times we got into a game that lasted for about 3 minutes, let's say, before the game just completely froze and we were disconnected and kicked out. So like I said, there could be and there are going to be bugs, but that's why this is still in beta right now. And as I said before, the beta will end and the full event should launch on November the 8th of 2018 here. Some people might also be wondering about a potential console version of this for the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, for example. Now, there is a precedent, so to speak. Last year in 2017, there was no Forge event on those two platforms, but given the fact that during this summer, the Gorge event did make it to the consoles, albeit after the Gorge event on PC ended, I think there's a pretty good chance that we will see the Forge Season 2 available on Xbox One as well as PlayStation 4. Lastly, I feel it's worth reiterating that any items that you acquire during the beta for the Forge Season 2 here will be removed from your inventory after the beta ends, so please don't get attached to anything that you might find or unlock or weave or whatnot during this event. As a matter of fact, I would just keep my hands off of it entirely. Try not to do anything with the skins at all. Even if nothing bad should happen, if this is a beta, and it would just suck that you would get something removed from your inventory through some freak incident, where there was a bug that allowed you to like unweave a previous event skin or weave one, and then you didn't get refunded your spools. It's just like an all-out bad idea. So I would just try to keep my hands off of the skins, especially anything that requires spools and stuff that is going to be available during the actual Forge Season 2 event. While the Forge is in beta, just try to keep away from it, I would say. That would be my personal recommendation. So those are the details that I have at the moment that I've read about on this event, as well as some of my opinions about the direction that it decided to take. I'll likely be streaming gameplay of this event through the month of November, so feel free to check out my Twitch channel if you're interested in seeing that sort of progression in real time. Also, my Discord group might be worth plugging here. I can't make any promises, but there are other players on there who are interested in Don't Starve Together especially, and you might be able to find some good people to team up with even when I'm not on. So once again, I can't promise you a team, but just check it out. Maybe it'll be for you, maybe it won't. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching as always, and I hope to see you next time.